Now, as we've been hearing, the tension between the US and North Korea has escalated again, with North Korea's foreign minister saying the country may consider a hydrogen bomb test on the Pacific Ocean of an unprecedented scale. He was elaborating on leader Kim Jong-un's warning that Donald Trump would pay dearly for his threats in a UN address to totally destroy the country. Well, let's get more on this now. Joining me is the Professor of Political Science, Peter Mathews, who's in Long Beach in California. Hello to you, Peter. Thank you for joining us again here on Sky News. First of all, what have you made of this latest escalation in the rhetoric between those two leaders?
Extremely dangerous, because every time Trump escalates his rhetoric, North Korea escalates its actions. And this can lead nowhere but disaster eventually. And President Trump has to calm it down a little bit, not talk so belligerently. For example, at the UN, to say that he would totally destroy North Korea if need be, if it needs to be to defend America, that's too vague and too dangerously specific as well. So he should be much more careful in saying, look, if you attack the United States first, then the US will retaliate, but don't even think of it. And frankly, that's something that's understood. There's deterrence going on right now among all the nuclear states. It's called the MAD doctrine. Mutually assured destruction, and North Korea knows about that. Trump needs to really tone down the rhetoric, because it can go out of hand completely.
But that's unlikely to happen, isn't it? This back and forth between these two leaders has been going on for quite some time. Are we reaching a dangerous level now?
You know, I can't imagine how much more dangerous we can get, but we could get more dangerous, especially this miscalculation, Sam. It actually happened in World War I. Barbara Tuchman, the eminent American historian, said that World War I was started through miscalculation and through escalation that was never anticipated between the various powers that got involved. This could happen here as well, especially now we have nuclear weapons. It is far more devastating than anything that could happen in World War I. So I believe that we need to get Donald Trump, he needs to rely on many of his advisors who are saying, Mr. Trump, maybe it's time now to give some concession to North Korea, like saying we will cut back on the military maneuvers with South Korea if North Korea agrees not to test any more nuclear weapons. There's a proposal by China and Russia, which sounds pretty good, actually, that there will be a mutual freeze on one side of major military maneuvers on the United States and South Korean side in exchange for North Korea freezing its nuclear tests and missile tests as well. They should work on that. And I would suggest some kind of diplomacy where President Trump offers to go to North Korea or send an emissary to have maybe basketball diplomacy. You heard about ping pong diplomacy when we opened up relations with China. And China was a nuclear weapons state back then. So was the Soviet Union. And we were able to work and live with them. This should be done at this point. It's too precarious right now for anything else to happen.
But Donald Trump is definitely focusing on sanctions, though, isn't he? I mean, he's definitely pushing for wider, tougher sanctions. Still, that's the play from the US. What kind of impact is this latest announcement going to have?
It could be a severe impact, because what he's said is he's going beyond the UN sanctions, and he's coming up with, he came with an executive order on the American side saying that we, the United States, will target any financial institution in the world that facilitates any kind of trade or banking or any kind of trade relationship with North Korea. So that means any of the banks, and frankly, he quoted the president of China saying that he ordered the Chinese central bank not to, to tell the other banks to not finance any kind of operation of trade with North Korea. And maybe that's a big step in the right direction for China. But for the United States to go and push it even further from here, that's going to be seen as almost an act of war by North Korea. Certainly an act of provocation. That's why you heard the new threat now from the leader of North Korea once again. So I think we need to de-escalate the rhetoric and put real measures of what's called confidence building on both sides, starting with our side, the United States.
Professor Mathews, these sanctions have been going on again for years and years and years. I think there have been 9 rounds of UN sanctions since 2006, and it's had no impact so far in deterring North Korea's nuclear program. What kind of impact do these sanctions have on the people of North Korea? Because they clearly are not having much of an impact on Kim Jong-un himself.
It's definitely hurting the people of North Korea. It'll hurt them even more with a new round that President Trump is proposing. I would suggest we go back to the ideas of the agreed framework under President Clinton. For 8 years, we had negotiations going on. North Korea froze its plutonium reactors, which would be able to build bombs. They froze it and agreed and actually maintained that and committed to it and was inspected. And we were able to get agreements to give them and provide fuel for them and maybe build some 2 light water reactors as the United States promised. That promise was broken off when George Bush came in and accused North Korea of cheating. it was a misunderstanding of what was going on exactly, because in the agreed framework, they only mentioned plutonium reactors being frozen and not uranium. And apparently North Korea was still buying equipment to consider researching for uranium enrichment. So that was seen as a cheating maneuver. And instead of working things out and saying, wait a minute, North Korea, you might be breaking the rules here, let's work on this. Instead, George Bush withdrew us from the agreed framework and put up the rhetoric which called North Korea a member of the axis of evil with Iran and Iraq. And after Bush invaded Iraq, North Korea became more paranoid about getting invaded. The paranoia set in even further. And now you have, under Trump, escalation of paranoia, and North Korea deciding to build hydrogen bombs now to defend itself with missiles that could reach the United States. This is so far out of control, Sam, and something has to be done, or there's a disaster unfolding here for the whole world, not just North Korea and South Korea and the United States or Japan.
Absolutely. Well, we'll certainly have to wait and see and monitor this situation closely. Professor Peter Mathews, thank you once again for joining us here on Sky News this morning.